took the perfect avenue. You quite enough.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the studio this evening. That looks pretty on there. Maybe what I should also do is just focus on it. There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the studio this evening. You are looking at an item of candy cane weave, which looks quite sort of pretty. I wish I understood the weave. It's supposed to look like the colours sort of twist through the chain. I suppose it does look like that a little. So twist backwards and forwards. But anyway, the purpose of the stream this evening, or the content on the stream this evening, is to extend this out to bracelet length, 7 inches, to make a 7.5 inch bracelet, and then move on to something else. We may come back to this at some point and extend it out to a full necklace length, so I can take photographs, but we shall see. In the meantime, I need to get some rings out in order to spend some time opening them. So how long is this? This is approximately 3.5 inches. That means that if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I reckon there's 11 sets of rings. That's 22 rings. 11 pairs, 22 rings in each colour, and it's 3.5 inches long. So I double that, making, well, another 22 rings. So if I get another 22 rings of each colour out, I might have enough. We shall see. So I want some pretty colours. I want red. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 red rings. They're just out of your view at the moment. Just while I do this, 22. These look, they're weird colour. In this current light, these look blue to me with a purple cast. So purple blue. I know they look really blue on stream, but they're purple. It's weird. Those of you that know Cadbury's chocolate, it's that sort of purple type of colour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, that's a long chain. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Just to show you, that's a long chain that has done that completely by itself in the box, just, or bag, or wherever it came from, just as it rattled around, and they all fit themselves together. And now some green ones, also 22. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Another long chain, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, well, there's 23 there. So I do that and take one of them away, that makes 22. Now I have to open these. I shall do that using my ring, this device. Now then, the order I am using is green, purple, red. Okay. Green, purple, red. The reason for that, knowing that, is I put to help me not get them in the wrong order. I put them in a circle on the desk. Well, yeah, a circle, triangle, and that way I can sort of pick one up in sequence. And for some reason, I go anti-clockwise. So I've just moved them around. So now this is really just a case of doing that 66 times, or another 64 times. So we get through it fairly quickly. And then we can go back to weaving rings. There's a pussycat at the other side of the studio on a desk. I can't see what he's doing because he's behind the door. I can hear him sneezing, but he's moving around doing something. He's probably disrupting my other desk. What are you up to over there, pussycat? Possibly just curling up to sleep, curling around a little bit, but that's a desk I work on, and he does tend to push things out of the way, so when I come to start work tomorrow morning I could have anything anyway. Usually sort of pens and stuff go missing as he's pushed them off the desk or under a monitor or something like that. So I have to spend about 10 minutes sorting it out. Okay, so that's almost all the red done. Now we do the purple. So I'm assuming everybody is feeling just rather quiet this evening. There don't seem to be a lot happening in chat. You're all lurking and doing something else, I gather. I love this colour. It's a pity it really doesn't show up. It doesn't show up in photographs either. One of these days I'm going to have to calibrate the camera, no, not the video camera, but the camera that I'm photographic camera, and just to see whether I can actually represent these colours, because it's a pity. They're a really beautiful colour, but I just can't get it to show you guys. Never mind from the video camera. I can't do it with the stills camera to actually show you a picture. It's extremely irritating. So if I calibrate the camera, then at least I might stand a better chance, but either I'll pay for some very expensive lighting. Monday today, isn't it? Yeah, first day of the week. Sometimes lose track. I work from home, as some of you know, and that means that I occasionally will completely lose track of which day it is, because I'm in the same place. It's not as though I've just come home or anything like that from an office somewhere else, and therefore you kind of know what day it is. Occasionally been known to even forget when it's a weekend. It's a long time since I accidentally worked on a weekend. But sometimes you get up on the morning and think, what day is it? Or occasionally, sort of, when it comes to a weekend stream, Saturday or Sunday evening, I'm going, did I work today? Trying to remember what day it is. Computer clocks are wonderful for that. And also I've got a clock over here that sets itself. It's one of these radio control clocks, which is extremely useful. Not only to have accurate time, but also to actually have an accurate date. Okay, well, we're not far off having opened all these colours here, and then we'll be into actual weaving. Interesting, the terminology as well. I was just thinking then, because weaving, of course, I think I kind of think of weaving as sort of material type weaving, rather than the weaving of rings in and out of each other, which I suppose is where it comes from in terms of rings and chainmail. But it's kind of an interesting difference. You sort of think of the words differently. And of course, I'm from Yorkshire, where weaving was in the past was one of the main industries of Yorkshire was weaving. So there is, or has been, a lot of mills around the place. Which really seems daft when a mill, of course, comes from milling, which is what they used to do with flour and stuff like that, not weaving. Not quite sure. Well, again, I suppose it comes from the time when machinery started to be introduced, and they were called, I think they were called weaving mills, something like that. Anyway, that's the last of the green. Have a bit of a drink of water before my voice goes. Okay, so we left this at the point where I have to look at my diagram to make sure I'm holding it right, and I'm not. I need to hold it 90 degrees that way. To keep this Saitu Nu, thank you very much for following the studio. That is most kind of you. I do appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Yeah, hey, that's in focus. Hey, that's amazing. That's in focus. Just about, anyway. I have to hold it this way because the purpose is I've got to get a ring through this corner and that corner in order that this weave progresses correctly. I'm guessing if I did it through the opposite corners, all that kind of happens is it doesn't. It sort of does okay. Well, it probably just reverses the weave, I guess. Instead of going one way, it'll go the other. But I don't actually know. I'm trying to avoid doing it wrong, shall we say. So I've used red, green, purple. I actually want green next, so what I'm just doing is just going to move them rings there. You can see the purple ones there. I'm just moving them around. You get into like a habit. And my habit really is, I don't know, this habit going anti-clockwise on my desk. So purple, red, green, purple, red, and so on. That way I can. I've done red. You're green. Yeah, that's right. That way, then I don't pick up the wrong colour and upset the pattern. So this one goes through a purple and a red ring on this corner here, and then we fasten this ring. one reason why I don't have the rings too close to me as well, I'm just going to move them again. There's this little tail that's on the end here, which was there originally to help me hold it, but the tail of the chain anyway, bushes the rings on the desk and sends them all over the place, which is a little bit irritating when it happens. Right, and then I do pick up another purple ring and I've gone one corner, as I said, and now pick up the other corner, so they're diagonally opposite each other. Again through a purple and red ring, and I close it up. So as the title says, this is technically the craft is chainmail. I tend not to describe it as that very often. Just because everybody thinks chainmail is the stuff that knights put on, in battle, and I don't do that sort of stuff. So just do the jewellery stuff. So now that I hold it that way, so that I can get some rings through the side, in the right order through the side. So I put the purple on, and now looking at that, am I doing this right sequence? Yes, I am. No, I'm not. What am I doing? I've got the wrong colour. I'm sure I've got the wrong colour there. Green, blue, red, green. I'm calling it blue now. Red. Green, blue. Green, blue, green, green, purple, red, green, purple, red, and I've just put purple when I meant to put green, which means that I got to take them off. Not particularly a problem, it's just doesn't harm the rings to do this. If I did it a lot, then I'd probably throw the rings away, but just opening them once or twice isn't a problem. I'll put them there to one side. I'll use them in a minute because they're sort of now then. Hold it the right way, which is that way, and then I pick up the corner like that. Line them up, hopefully they'll stay. The rings, if you've been on the stream before, you'll have heard the rings have a memory, as does most metal when you bend it. So they sometimes misalign themselves, and I've got to go back and align them again, especially the thinner rings. The thicker the ring, the less likely it is to do that. There we go. A little tweak, and there we go. Now then, see what I was doing is now I'm going to pick up the purple ring, and it I found a little trick with this, and that is the colour that ring when I'm doing this particular part of the weave, and when that colour ring there, I go through the green, I go through the red, which is the next one over. Then at the third ring I go through is the same colour as the one I'm holding, in this case purple, and through the green. So I've kind of picked that trick up to help me make sure I don't mix up the colour sequence. So when I had the purple ones in a minute ago, the next colour would have been red, but the third ring in that sequence would not have been red. So I knew I was doing something wrong. So that's kind of why I backed it out, and sort of worked out where I'd gone wrong, because I knew it couldn't be that red ring because the third one wasn't red. Green, red, purple, and pick up the green. Fear Reaper, good evening. Nice to see you again. How are you today? I fixed the problem with the rings. There was a couple that were out of sequence in the chain. They just hadn't gone through. I hadn't put them through one of the rings that they should have gone through. Just after the stream last night, it was just a matter then of just opening up the ring in its place and just feeding it through correctly, and it was very quickly corrected. So I've gone green, I've gone purple. My next one is red. And again, bottom right corner, top left corner. So after the stream last night and before the stream today, I've spent several hours reading UK legislation. Very important for streaming and actually very important for the website as well, because one of the things I wanted to do on the stream at some point in the future, and then potentially to put the information onto the website, was to do a bracelet, if you like, or even a necklace with rings made from sterling silver, or even rolled gold, which is sometimes described as filled gold. But UK legislation means interesting things, like the website and the stream constitute advertising, believe it or not, and therefore I can't describe something as being made out of sterling silver unless it's been assayed and hallmarked. And of course, if I'm just making it, it hasn't. So if I was making something on stream from rings that were sterling silver rings, I would have to describe it as being made from silver metal. Not sterling silver, but silver metal. The article itself. I can describe the rings as being sterling silver rings, but not the article until it's been hallmarked. Because the rings are a component, and they don't need hallmarking. And things like the clasps that I'm using on these, I can describe as sterling silver, because although they're a finished article in themselves, and these would be technically a mixed metal, the amount of sterling silver weighs less than 6.78 grams, and therefore I am not required to hallmark it. So it's all very interesting, and if you get it wrong, if you like, there's large fines and possibly imprisonment for doing it wrongly. So it's interesting how you have to describe things. It's also interesting just how much it costs to hallmark articles as well. So if I make something, I then have to, well, potentially have to hallmark it, which costs about £20 an item to hallmark. Having already spent to hallmark something, you also have to have a what they call a sponsor mark, which says who it is that's sponsored the hallmarking. and those are stamps because they're generally stamped, or they are lasered, but you have to register a hallmark stamp, and one has to be physically made. And it's about 50 quid to register a mark, and then about another 20 to 30 pounds to have a stamp created. So you've spent £100 before you attempt to have something hallmarked. So interesting. So I've just done red and green. So my next one's purple. This is why I do a circle, you see. That way it helps me keep track of these. Oops, says it. Come back here. So that one and that one. So you see, not only on these streams do you get, if I stay on frame, do you get to see me make these things, you also get lessons on things like law and and other stuff. And even if you export things, you have to have them marked as well, potentially with a completely different set of marks to what the UK expect for hallmarking. And it's quite an interesting exercise, because I was looking at things like Etsy last night at just how many people who sell silver metal and use the words sterling silver who are not displaying hallmarks, or even indeed saying the articles are hallmarked. Yeah, I thought by the time I did the other candy cane that I got used to which way to hold this to put this next ring through, and despite the fact I've done 6-7 inches of candy cane already, this was 3.5 inches when we started, I'm still having to look at a picture to remember it's got to be that way, and it's not difficult. It's you look at the rings, you can see the two red ones which are on top have to be vertical. The two on that immediately underneath it are horizontal. It's it's a hash shaped, and it's always that shape, and it's always that way around. It's not as though it changes at different things, and I still can't get that into my brain that that's the right way. Oh dear. Purple. Green, red, pick up purple as the third ring, which means I've got it right. And then pick up the green. I'm going to tilt that camera a little bit. I'm tending to drift this way towards the end of the desk, so I'm going to do that. And then hopefully, you know what I'm going to do now, aren't you? I'm going to end up doing that off frame. It's a problem with I don't know whether top-down view is better, or because like now I'm sort of holding it such that I'm kind of holding it so your view would be like that on the top-down view. Just because I'm holding this sort of chain with my finger, it's sort of convenient way to hold it. But it's really difficult to work out a way in which you can see what I'm doing. And still be zoomed in, because if I zoom out, of course, you don't have a fantastic view. You just sort of get a general view of me doing things with something in my hands. So purple, red. Bottom right, top left. But if you think you would prefer a different view, well, please let me know. The camera is relatively versatile. It's on a snake rather than a tripod, so I can bend it around in a few different positions. It's one of the difficulties. I suppose it's one of the difficulties with certain creative sections, is being able to get a decent view for you guys. So what you see me looking at like that is I'm looking at that ring has now just very gently slid sideways slightly. I'm just looking at whether it's lined up properly. And if I do line it up properly, the seam all but disappears. And they become quite difficult to see, which is ideally what I'm after. Jasper 5020, welcome back to the studio this evening. Nice to see you again. Yes, I thought they looked rather nice. They're a Christmassy sort of colour. The blue that you're seeing though is purple. I don't know if that makes a difference to whether you like the colours or not, but it's a blue that's on the purple side of blue. But the camera had the camera likes to show it as blue. Just you want to, yeah, come here, ring. And the camera makes that look like a real blue colour, but it's on the purple side. Something to do with the lighting. But anyway, welcome again, as I said, back to the studios. I think we've seen you for a little while, but it's nice to see you again. I trust you have been well. At which point you're going to mention something like you were in the stream last night, and then my brain is worse than a sieve trying to remember things sometimes. I'm doing something wrong here. I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong because my little trick, my little colour trick is failing. So what's wrong? The red one green, then purple, then red, There's I mentioned earlier on the stream, there's a trick. When I go through the red, then I go through the next ring, and then the third ring that I pick up should be the same colour as the green that I had in my hand. It's not. It's going to be purple, which would say I should be using a purple ring at this point, but it's not. So somewhere down here I've done something wrong. That's what I've done wrong. That's what I've done wrong. Ah, you've been well. That's good, Fluffy. Good, Jasper. No, pleased that you're well. Fluffy Twiglet, hello, good evening. And Ziak, good evening. Welcome to the studio. It looks it's not as complicated as it looks. Is the answer? It is actually a fairly simple weave. I just made a mistake, and I'll show you what it is. At the point where I've put this red ring on, I'm supposed to hold the top looking like that. Okay, so the green rings go across, the purple rings go vertically, and then put the ring through the bottom right and the top left. Only what I did was I held it that way and put it through the bottom right and the top left. So this red ring was, it was, if you like, rotated a quarter turn, and therefore that's what was throwing me off. Because and I'll explain the trick again in a minute, but I had a little trick for the next ring in sequence, the green one, which tells me if I've done something right or not, and it was telling me I'd done it wrong. So I kind of had a built-in check. Now then, I did see a ring that didn't quite, which one was it? That red one there. Just one of these red rings has just moved slightly. So I hold it like that, and then take the red ring and I put the red ring through the bottom right corner, bottom right corner, and I close it. And then that's in the bottom right corner, so I then put one through the top left corner, so I pick up two rings through the top left corner like that. Now then, if I've got this right, my little trick works, and I'll know that I'm using the correct colour ring. So I then hold it like this, and I pick up my green ring. So I'm holding it with the two reds horizontal that way. Now I go through a red ring, I go through another ring which is on the right hand side, which is a purple, and then the third ring I go through is the green, And now the fact that it's green and I'm holding a green tells me I'm doing it right. I wasn't before. I was picking up a purple one on the third ring, and so that was telling me I was doing something wrong. So that's the third ring is green, and I'm doing it right. And then I pick up the final red. Joy. Oh, it's your birthday, Fluffy Twiggler. Hello then, happy birthday to you. I won't sing, my voice is off. And besides, happy birthday is a copyrighted song. And I could get my recorded video silenced for singing happy birthday. The laws are interesting. Now, having picked up the green, I do exactly the same, but on the other side. And again, the third ring I'll pass through will be green. So red, purple, green. So I've done it right. And the final red. At work, we might say to someone, "Oh, you're 21 again for an unspecified number of times," or "You're 21 for an unspecified number of times." Can't say that on the stream because people aren't always 21 yet. The other thing that sometimes gets said at work is it's kind of like, "I'm 21 and 40 months," or words like that. Now then, I hold it that way. That's correct, yes. And then I go bottom left, top right with the purple ring, which is next. It's actually, my singing wasn't, well, I'm not a professional singer. I wasn't too bad a long time ago. I did used to be in, a long time ago, I used to be in the school choir, so I could sing. I was one of only two males in the choir because I was the only. There wasn't too many of us that could hold a note. I was one of them. It lasted a short while because I was more interested in making music with instruments. So I at that point learnt. What did I learn? Brass instruments, cornet, and then an E flat horn. And I kind of haven't really practiced any singing since then. Well, I was about to say I can stay on tune. At the moment I probably couldn't, but I could at one time stay on tune. But you might be able to hear my voice has got a bit of a croak in it at the moment. Yep, underfloor heating is nice. As long as you control it properly. Because it, depending on the type of flooring, you've got, it continues warming up for quite a room up for quite a while after you've turned it off. So you've got to control it well. Otherwise, it gets too hot. You can do underfloor cooling as well, by the way. Same way, especially if it's water, you just feed it through a heat exchanger instead. They broke out the entire floor, and who had to move all the rubble? You mean you lifted it wrongly? So it's your fault you've hurt your back. You have to learn to lift properly. You lift not with your back, with your feet or your arms. Your feet, your legs or your arms. Don't lift with your back. You keep your back straight. And doing that way you don't hurt your back lifting things like rubble and stuff. I know it's kind of a bit awkward with a shovel to not bend over, but it's sort of, it's a bit awkward, I agree, but it sort of, there are different ways of doing it, but if you have to lift, ideally use your arms. Don't lift with your body bent over, because then your back's taking all the weight. Right, so go through the purple, go through the green, go through the red, which means I've got it right, and pick up the last colour. Oh, everybody's built. It's surprising how much you can lift. I mean, don't forget, you every time you bend over and stand up, you're probably shifting quite a few pounds of weight. And if you just stand with your back bent for a long time, you'll find that your back aches afterwards, because you've been lifting the wrong way. That's why if you have to bend over for a long period of time, try and support yourself with one hand. If you can, basically lean on something. I'm not using purple, I'm using red. So I nearly put completely the wrong ring through there talking to you guys. Don't mind, easy enough to correct, and it's a fun mistake to make, shall we say. Red's the third colour, I've got it right, so do the, yeah, that's right. .26 kilograms per hour. That's, okay. The special purple again, indeed the special purple. 26 kilograms per. That's 52, 55, 57 pounds. Well, in old UK weight, 56 pounds was half a hundredweight, which sounds heavy, doesn't it? You used to be able to buy potatoes in bags in the UK, big bags, and those bags were half hundredweight bags, and they stood about 3 feet tall. So in theory you'd be able to lift one on each arm, a complete bag of potatoes on each arm, which means you would be lifting a total of 100 weight, and there's 20 hundredweights in a UK ton imperial measurement. So there you go, you're able to lift a 20th of a ton. Sounds more impressive now, doesn't it, than 26 kilos. I hold it that way, yeah, with green rings, and go through the corners. Bottom right, top left. Now I could lift a bag of potatoes, but with 2 hands. I did go to the gym, but I used to go every day. But it wasn't weight training; it was in sort of endurance training, if you like. Lots of things like walking, rowing, and cross trainer. Just for endurance, not for, and fitness, general fitness, rather than actual into weightlifting of any kind. Oh, I mean, it's a long, there are long term measurements. I mean, these days I'd say we probably still do. Well, technically we don't use pounds and ounces anymore. The official measurements are kilograms and things like that, for weight anyway, in shops, so they're all metric. I'm not even sure whether they still maintain the old imperial standards, but that's what they were when I first learnt them, if you like, 40 odd years ago. So I used to know all those measurements, and things like what are things? Rods, perches, cables, acres, hectares. No, driving on the right side of the road, just like you do. You drive on the right side of the road. So do we, but it's the other side. You know, well, you know where it comes from, don't you? Why the English actually drive on the left-hand side of the road when they drive. And that comes from the way knights, if you like, used to pass each other, or anybody pass each other on the roads, on the bridle paths, if you like, when they used to ride horses. Because the right hand would hold the weapon, sword or sword basically, or lance or something like that, and so you passed with the other person on your right hand side so that you were free to attack them or defend yourself if they attacked you. If you do it on the other side, it was harder, if you see what I mean. So there was always that convention to pass that way around. Now what I'm trying to think now is whether I'm trying to think what the convention is for ships, because that's the same all the way over the world. And I was also trying to think of railways, because in some countries the railways do the same thing, left and some are left, some are right. The weird one though, if you talk about weird measurements, is US gallons. In the UK, a gallon is 8 pints of liquid. In America, it's not, or rather, well, I don't actually know what it is in America. I know that there's about, it's about 5 point, is it 5 point something? It's less anyway. UK pints in a US gallon. What I don't know is how many US pints are in a US gallon, and whether a US pint is the same as a UK pint. Although it always seemed when I was drinking beer over there to be about the same, but 5.4, something like that. It's less anyway. So I mean, things like when you hear about UK, petrol in the US is cheaper anyway, but one of the reasons why it's cheaper per gallon is because there's less liquid in the gallon than there is in the UK. So when you make a direct comparison, you're not actually comparing the same things, you're comparing two completely different volumes. It's like saying, it's a bit like saying this great big swimming pool of liquid costs more than this little tiny cup of liquid, and it's kind of and just litres. Yeah, litres. Well, of course we use litres these days. Was it 4.54 gallons? No, 4.54 litres per gallon. Always remember that. Well, I don't always remember it. I've remembered that for a long time because I now want a purple ring. A long time ago, I used to have a car that ran on propane gas. Oh, well, liquid petroleum gas, sorry. And liquid petroleum gas has, for a long time has been sold in litres. So I used to buy liquid petroleum gas in litres and petrol in gallons, which was a little bit confusing, but you kind of get used to it, because the reason I always remember is it was a 45 litre tank, which is effectively 10 gallons, and it's 45.4, but a 45 litre tank is 10 gallons, so it was fairly easy to do the maths. But then you get things like a millimetre cubed is a milliliter, providing you're talking about water at standard temperature and pressure. Okay, Noiko Joy, have a good lunch. Hopefully he's paying and therefore you're not. And that's even better. Yeah, go out, have lunch, go with family. It's always better than watching a stream. Don't worry about it. See you tomorrow another time. Yeah, I understand what you mean there, Fear Reaper. I think I've read it how it was intended. I could read it the same way I think you thought about it, and that is her dad wants to go out to lunch tomorrow, or to lunch at some point. Maybe that'll be tomorrow. But I think she meant today. Yeah. One of these days, I was about to say, one of these days I'll visit the continent. What am I doing wrong here? No, I wasn't, just not holding it right. Through the purple, so I know it's right. One of the countries I kind of always wanted to visit was Denmark. I'd love to go see the Lego thing in Denmark. I've seen similar things done in the States. I've never actually, there's one in the UK as well which I've never visited, but and red again. Time to craft something. What are you going to be up to this time then? Are you going to have another go at papercraft? Was it Fear Reaper? You going to go? You had a go at abandon and we're going to try again? Or is this you going electronic now? You're gonna craft some cigarette. Oh, I see. That's a euphemism, is it? Oh well. I'll not say anything. I've said it before, and I'll not say it again. I personally don't like them. But there again, I personally was allergic to them at one point, which meant I couldn't go in the UK until the legislation changed. I couldn't go in pubs where they were smoking because I tended to be physically sick. Publicans don't kind of like that, especially if you've not bought anything from them in the first place to induce it. Come on, I can't pick up. I want the green. Third ring is green. There we go. Oh no. Whilst I have views about tobacco, I think drugs are even worse. And yes, I know it's a drug. Technically, just about everything can be classed as a drug. Weird thing about smoke though is cigarette smoke. I'm still a bit sensitive to it, but I'm not too bad these days. But cigar smoke doesn't bother me. Something about cigarettes. Something weird. It smells different. Red, purple, green. So I'm doing it right. And through the red. Then hold it that way. Yeah. And use purple rings. Thank you very much, 3D. That is most considerate of you. Yeah. You leave it out there with you. I don't know. I mean, Amsterdam, yes, maybe, but Dutch, no. Well, I don't think so. I mean, the stereotype for Dutch is tulips, isn't it? And windmills. How are you doing, 3D bloke? And have you well, I'm assuming you're going to be streaming tonight. Have you decided on a theme for this evening? Oh, clogs. Yeah, that's true, clogs. Well, these clogs are a saleable item. You can trade on that. Red, yeah. Purple, green. Red is 3, so I am correct. Melting here, it's like an... Okay, we're not too bad. Well, it's 25 degrees in here at the moment, but it's not been too bad. I have had the windows open all day, but it's not a particularly humid day today, so it's relatively dry. So the it doesn't feel hot particularly. Having said which, I'm probably going to start melting here as well before long. Now that I've said that. Anime. Ah, okay. Jeez. Oh, yeah. Dutch Edam. Yes, I love Dutch Edam cheese. Or Edam cheese. Wherever it comes from. Well, it is, yes, usually described as Dutch Edam. I love that cheese. Cheese is a weird one. It's a bit like chocolate in that respect, and if you grate cheese, it tastes better than if you try and eat it in a big block. Chocolate's the same. Seems to be air gives it a nicer flavour. Yes, I now want to go through the corners. I've just done red, so I'm back to green. And I'm dropping pliers. Okay. By which, the translation of which is, I've not got the foggiest idea what that is, so I'm sure it'll be good though. I don't watch anime. I've got no idea what they are. You know, the names, if you see what I mean. I know anime is a style of art and things, but and it's a whole segment of entertainment, but that's about it. Litany, thank you very much for following the studio. That is most kind of you. I do appreciate you doing that. That's fantastic, thank you. Green, blue, purple, special blue, special purple, special blue. Yeah, I've got it right because the third colour I went through was purple. There are times when these look blue to me as well. Come on, let go. Thank you. There's a green, red, purple, and the green again. I could watch it. I mean, yeah, I could watch it, but I can watch lots of things. It's not something that I would look at and go, I'm not watching that again, if you know what I mean. It's I mean, there's cartoons like Futurama which I can watch, but I'm not that. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it, so to speak. Anime is a bit the same. To me, it's I can watch it. Yeah, that way. This time with red rings and through the corners. Are you going to do another turntable? That's interesting. Now that one I would be interested in watching, but yeah, that's right. Because it's I mean, some of those turntables, when you've been showing the the reel on the bottom, kind of look at those and trying to decide. I almost was, because I know what they are, but I was almost trying to decide whether they were paintings of turntables, so it was a picture of a turntable that had been painted, if that makes sense. So quite good. And your next long term, okay, so I'm guessing that one's a secret until you actually start it. Squeeze it. Done red, green. There was only 22 pairs of colours, and it's amazing how actually I'm not really stopped. I might not be as fast as I could be, but it's amazing how long it takes to get through 22 sets of colour. Doesn't sound much till you say that's 44 rings per colour. There's 3 colours. That's 132 colours. 132 rings. I'm still having to check that I'm holding this the right way around. It's surprising, Free. It really is surprising. There's only two. There's only two. How do I describe this? I'm only putting the rings through in 2 different ways, so there's only 2 things to learn. And I'm using the colours in sequence, and I've actually got the colours on the desk in front of me in a triangle circle. So I look at this, and the top one's green, so the next one's blue. If you see what I mean, it's always the top colour, and then is the one you've just used on this weave. So I know which colour sequence, and when I have that shape on the top, I know what my next how I've got to feed the rings through the next. And if I don't have that sequence on the top, then I know I'm using the other one. So yes, when I first did this, I was looking at a diagram and going through about 20 pictures to get used to it. But once you've sort of grasped that initial 2, once you realise it's just 2 things repeated, it then becomes a heck of a lot easier. So I mean, just to illustrate this then, so I'm using purple as the next ring, so I'll just get hold of it. So I hold it like that, and then I've got the bottom left and the top, sorry, the bottom right and the top left. And so I'm going to feed this purple ring through the 2 in the bottom right and close it. So that's the 2 in the bottom right, and then I pick up the 2 in the top left. Like that. And close it. And that's one of the 2 sequences. Now just close this green ring a little bit. It's moved slightly. There we go. So now when I get hold of these 2, hold it like that. You see there's no cross piece in the middle, so I know I'm now on the other sequence. And so what I do is hold it that way. Where's my cocktail stick on? Just to tweak this. So I now hold it that way, and I pick up my next ring, which is, I'll do it using the other pliers just for the moment, make it easier to see. So the second sequence is I go through the purple, so I'm kind of still going through the corners almost. So I go through the purple, through the next ring that's underneath it, and then through the ring that's next to that, and it's red, which is the one I'm holding, so I know I'm doing this right, and the last purple. So I've kind of still gone across the corner, but I've picked up an extra 2 rings if you like, and then I close this. I'll swap pliers again because it's easier using the bigger ones. Okay, now what I do at this point is I'm going to effectively do the same thing at the other side, but to be honest it's a heck of a bit easier just to turn it round. Just to turn it round as though I've magically done it on that side, and pick up my red ring again and do the same thing again through this purple, which is on this side, the next ring, which is the green down, which is the green, then through the red. Red is red through red, and now I'm doing it right, and then the final purple. Now when I close this and then hold it, you should see a familiar pattern. Okay, so now when I hold that up, guess what? It looks like that one we just did a minute ago with the 2 horizontal and the 2 vertical. So we're back where we started, and that's it. And it's just repeating that time after time after time. You probably, to be honest for you, probably wouldn't find it that, I mean these rings are large. The smaller ones, like when I do it with this, they're a little bit more fiddly just because there's less space. But it actually produces a better quality chain than this one. This is slightly loose. Quality, odd word. The quality is the same. This one is a lot more. It's sort of a firmer ring. If I sort of roll it in my fingers, it's a firmer ring. This one is a little more sort of flexible ring, shall we say? So its shape, it will settle very slightly out of shape, and if I bend it, it settles a little bit more out of shape. So I've got to be careful in my choice of words. But I think you might be surprised. I mean, it's like it's like when you're trying to draw out some white thin lines with the airbrush. Once you know how to do it, you can do it, and occasionally it's frustrating when it's spiders or something like that, but this is kind of the same. When you know what you're doing, you're not frustrated, you're not swearing at doing a fine line, because it works. It's only when it goes wrong that you start getting hit up, to use a Yorkshire saying. The tension gets there and you potentially wanting to swear. But otherwise, no. It actually is kind of relaxing to do this sort of thing. I find it, except when I do things like drop a ring, or I've on some of the more complex weaves or difficult weaves where you're trying to get something between about, you sort of doing all this sort of thing, trying to get a ring to go through, that you'll just get it through and you'll drop it and the ring will pop out and I'll go away and come back. But this weave actually is one of the nicer ones to do. Just put that through there before I drop it. The awkward one I found to do was this one, which is called a full Persian. When you feed the green ring, second green ring through, because of the way the rings are twisted out of shape, if you like, it's a little bit fiddly to get it through on the second, when you feed the green ring through, because the red ones are easy, so to speak. They're just they're easily closed, shall we say. But feeding the second green ring through, it is I won't say it's a pain in the neck. It's practice, but it's more fiddly. This particular weave is it's quite easy. It sort of is, I suppose. And once you get in, it's like painting. Once you get into the zone of doing it, you lose all sorts of time, and it just goes. I like the Persian. I do actually like the Persian. I mean, this is a Christmas themed one, but I kind of do like that chevron look. I also quite like this one, which is a half Persian, or it's a version of a half Persian. But that's I quite enjoy that particular weave. It's quite it's almost a rectangular sort of weave, and it's a bit it's an interesting one, because if you squeeze it like that, it becomes X shaped. It doesn't stay in that sort of shape, but it's literally an X. The two rings are at right angles to each other, and as soon as you let go, it slips back into that rectangular box. But it's a nice sort of shape. But I do love playing with these. They're really tactile. There's something about the aluminium ring. They're warm, I guess, which helps. But I just love just playing with them, basically. Green for those two. That's there we go. Purple and red. I kind of like go. I like that one, and actually I like that one, and I like that, and I kind of like them all, to be honest. Some I prefer making more than others. I mean, another half Persian is this one, which is a nice sort of, again, a flexible one. So the last one and this one, both half Persians. It's just, this is called a 3-in-1, the other's called a 4-in-1. You kind of close the ring structure up a little bit between the two, really. But I think they're all sort of nice and fun shapes. I mean, this is a Byzantine bracelet. I mean, this is a particular one that's got stretchy rings in it, so it doesn't have a clasp. But this is another nice. Well, apart from the stretchy rings, if this was done in metal, then this is a nice, easy one to do. Just because the rings fold back on each other and just hold the positions. The stretchy rings actually make this one a bit more fiddly, because you kind of have to because you can't close a ring with a stretchy one. It's always closed, so you kind of have to work out how it's going to look when you've put it on, as if you like, in your mind you open and close the stretchy ring to work out where it's going to go, and then you've got to sort of put it on in that position. And with this particular bracelet, the Byzantine, to try and put them in, you kind of have to put them on and then sort of stuff them through an existing ring, and as you can see there's not a lot of space in there to stuff rings through, but you know, it was fun doing. Yeah, it is actually a bit like Worry Bead, same sort of idea. You love trains, do you, Lagamuffin? I think you were in the other evening, weren't you? Have I done that right? Yes, I have. If you love trains, let me show you something then. Not sure if you've seen this before. Oops. Let me zoom this camera back out. There you go. You might be able to guess what that is, especially if you love trains. And if you think you know, you can probably read its nameplate. And if you so daisy. So you might also then recognise that one. Yeah. No, in that case, I guess I've shown you these before, haven't I? Now, let me just pick up something that's fallen down here. I don't want it scratched, so. Another piece of artwork that was just stood there. Yep, so yes, that A4 did get finished a little while ago before we started with the rings. And for those that don't know, that blue locomotive is what they call an A4 steam locomotive. It's an image of the Mallard, which is the world steam engine speed record holder. Green, so purple is next. Actually, how long is this now? Actually, 6.5. So I might actually use all these rings that I've got left here. And for those people that don't know, both those locomotives are done using a craft called punchcraft. Kind of like miniature rug making, and it is one that I did on stream. Well, both of those were done on stream. So it is one of the crafts that I do. Let me zoom this back in. You could, except I don't have a Facebook, Muffin. So you can follow me on Twitter if you like, but I don't have Facebook yet. It will be something I will sort out at some point in the future, but at the moment I am concentrating on getting a website up and running, and then once I've done that, then we'll be looking at being a cat. A little fly jumping around trying to kill it. So once I get the website up and running, then I'll start looking at things like that. Go away! A little fly just hopping around. Little midge type fly. Actually, that's probably because I've got the windows open. So I shall just put this ring through here, and then I'll just close the windows. That will stop me being annoyed by even more of the little things. And that was a polite description. back in just a moment. Now the temperature will probably go up. Oh, the simple answer usually, like a muffin, is don't try too hard. You're going through pics of the air show. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a pity. The Vulcan bomber. Oh, right. I have loved the Vulcan bomber for a long time. Well, a long time. I did my first picture that I can recall doing, apart from the one that terrified me of art for a long time. The first picture I can remember doing was of a Vulcan bomber in the air, if you like, almost doing the wing over maneuver. So you got the top surface of it, and I remember doing that in junior school, and it hung on the headmaster's wall. It was still hung on the headmaster's wall, I understand, a few years after I left. So yeah, it's down to everything, isn't it? As long as it can keep its airworthiness certificate's the thing. That, and they can afford to keep doing it, keep flying it, I guess. But yeah, it's certainly a nice it's a nice aircraft to actually paint, just because of the shapes. You know, it's a bit like Concorde. It's a nice aircraft to paint. There are some which are nicer than others, and sort of that delta shape wing just somehow makes it a nice thing. And you know, for some reason, a lot of warplanes are really, really nice aesthetic shapes. Funding, okay. Yeah, well, any of those big engines. Why have I got something in my mind about there's some connection actually between Concorde and the Vulcan bomber? I'm trying to something to do with the engines. I'm sure it is. I'm kind of thinking that maybe they tested the Olympus engines from the Concorde on the Vulcan, so slung underneath for some reason. I don't know, something. But yeah, well, any of those old old engines are. Because they're pure turbojet engines, not turbofan engines like they use a lot of these days. Yeah, the Spitfire. I do. I used to, well, I'll say I used to fly model aircraft, and the Spitfire was always the one model I wanted to do. It takes a while to learn how to fly, and when you do learn, whilst you're learning to fly, you fly high wing models because they're easier. And the Spitfire is a low wing model, and you kind of have to transition to low wing models. And the Spitfire, being a high performance aircraft, even, well, I suppose you can get beginner style Spitfire beginner style performance with some of the Spitfire kits and things. But you know, to get one that does it justice, so to speak, you had to sort of spend quite a long time learning how to fly them and the low wing models, and I never got that far, which is kind of a pity. But I do. I am one of my first electronic paintings that I did with when I got the. I wonder where it is. Was of a Spitfire over chalk cliffs. I'm just wondering if I can, if I put in my portfolio. And if I did, whether I can get to it. I'm not sure I ever printed it out. Actually, I probably didn't print it out, so. I didn't print it out, but I do have some drawings of a Spitfire in here. Let me zoom the camera back out again. So, pencil drawings. Not fantastically good pencil drawings, but kind of practice ones. Wow, trying to get 30 to fly at once, that will be something. One of the pictures I wanted to try and do was the recreate was the Concorde and Spitfires together. Since I've got the portfolio out, here's an early airbrush painting. So that's I can't zoom out any more than that without. But that's, you might well, hopefully you'd recognise what that is if you've ever seen them before. But for some reason I always wanted to paint one of these. Yeah, I kind of want to paint. Well, as I say, I did one electronically. I'd love to do one with actual airbrush. I haven't got it. I suspect I didn't actually print it out. Oh, I will have printed it out, but on just, you know, laser paper rather than any high quality paper, which is no reason I can't do. I've got a nice Epson A2 printer next to me with archive quality ink in it, so I ought to be able to print one out. Thank you very much, Free. To be honest, a lot. Well, no, I was going to say a lot of that stencil work. It wasn't stencil work. It was using masking a lot. So it wasn't truly hand, but it kind of suited that image to use masking. And it yeah. Thank you, but it wasn't. I hope I'd do better these days. But I was pleased with it. I want to tweak that green ring and then just see how long this is. Another set of rings at least, which will be purple. Zoom this back in again. God blimey, that green ring has shifted quite a bit. It stands out like a sore thumb, and yet it's hardly moved. So hold it that way and use blue rings. I think what I'll do with this, I'll use all the rings I've got left here. Yeah, so other than the actual masking to just for the shapes, the outside shapes, everything else was done freehand on that. So it just basically allowed me to do, for those that don't know, what I did was, when I'm talking about masking, what I did was I took basically a piece of transparent sticky plastic and laid it over the drawing that I'd done of the train on the paper, cut it out and left the train there, did the background around it with an airbrush, and then effectively swapped it out. So I put the bit that I'd taken away back on, and then took the train out of the middle. It's a professional way, shall we say, of enabling you to do one without affecting your foreground without affecting your background, and vice versa. A lot of people will probably describe that as cheating, but it is something professionals do, so they don't have to waste time being really careful around edges if it's got that same sort of edge. Usually what the professionals will do afterwards though is then just tweak it afterwards, and I didn't, but I'm not a professional. 3D is the professional. So what they do is once they've done the main thing with the mask, they take the mask off completely and then just blend the edges, shall we say, so it looks more natural. I have had people occasionally say to me in the end, that's cheating. To which you should use just a paintbrush or something like that. And I go, if it's cheating, why do you use a paintbrush or an airbrush? Why aren't you using your finger in the paint? And why haven't you made the paint yourself? It's a tool to do a job. And quite frankly, the more professional you are, the more you use time-saving tools like that. I think you might agree. You don't do things the long way if you can do them the short way, because professionally, of course, the time costs money. And then we go to purple. Right, actually I'll have a look at it in a second, but I might leave it at this layer rather than putting the final two red ones on, just because of the way these last two rings, when I put them on, will sit. And I found when I did the pastel one, it kind of looked better. So I'll show you in a second what I mean. That's red, purple and green. Pick up there we go, that's it. Brew 76. Welcome to the studio this evening. Noodle Chen, also welcome to the studio this evening. Thank you. You don't know what this is. Okay. That triggers my sarcasm mode a little bit, I'm afraid. So please excuse me, but I would sort of say to anybody is along the lines of, the stream title describes this as being jewellery making with chainmail. It says just on the left, creating jewellery with chainmail jump rings. Okay, what I'm doing is I am making jewellery, in this particular case a bracelet, using a technique, a metalworking technique called chainmail. Chainmail referring to the joining of rings into chains or patterns to create whatever it is you're after. In this particular case they're made out of aluminium, and that aluminium is then anodized, which is a process of both oxidizing and dyeing the aluminium to produce these beautiful shiny rings, which are then the chainmail process is described as weaving. So it's woven into a pattern to form what you weren't looking at, because I didn't hold it on frame, but there we go. That's, in actual fact, I've just finished this one. It's actually it's about 7 1/3 inches, so it's a bit long for a 7 1/2, but yeah, 7 3/4. This is kind of a test bracelet. If I was actually needed this to be 7 1/2, I'd just take some of the rings off. Now then, what I was just on about this top here is, with these 4 together like that, what it's very nice to do is to feed a ring and pick up all 4 going diagonally like that. So they close up, both pairs close up, and I pick up all 4 with a single ring, and I get it holds it sort of really quite nicely as a termination, rather than just picking up 2 rings at the end, which I would otherwise do. But in this particular, well, it assumes that actually I use a single ring on the end that will actually pick up all 4. If I was to try and use a tiny ring like this, which obviously won't, well, I wouldn't use it on these anyway, but yeah, if I was to use a smaller ring that won't actually pick up all 4, I'd then put the 2 red ones on, so then I'd only have to pick up 2 rings rather than 4 and a bit, because of the diagonal nature. It's not quite, it needs one that's bigger than 4 rings, then bigger than would normally fit just 4 rings, because of them being diagonal. They're not passing directly through the center of a ring. It needs to be slightly larger. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, as you say, snobby artists, indeed. It's kind of like the people who think computer artists just push a button. It comes out the airbrush already, done for you, doesn't it? It's not like you've got to control the amount of paint, having pre-mixed it correctly, because you can't really mix it on paper like they can. So pre-mixed it, got the consistency right, which they don't really need to bother with. Got just the right amount of paint coming out, just the right distance to produce just the right spray pattern in just the right direction of you holding the brush, which they don't need to bother about. If they hold it slightly off, it doesn't really matter much. Yes, it's a lazy man's technique, isn't it? Free, it's cheating. It's dead easy. Oh dear. And you can reverse that and talk about hairy sticks the same way. So yeah, it's because I can't do it, it's cheating thing. Right, well, we're at 9:45, so what I actually was going to try and start another one tonight. It's a bit late to do that now. I was going to try and do a dragon scale weave. That's a new one, I've never done it before. I'm not actually going to do that. So what I'm going to do is just give you guys, some of you will have seen these, some of you won't. I just just some I'm going to show off basically, but before I show off I'm just going to go pick up a bracelet that I want to show off. Be back in a second. Don't go away. Right, I am back. I just wanted to pick up what is a relatively special bracelet that I made not so long ago, which I wanted to show on stream, which is this one. Made using Swarovski crystal and aluminium rings, so they're silver coloured aluminium rings. That argument a lot, yeah. With a sterling silver clasp, and I can describe the clasp as sterling silver because it weighs less than 6.78 grams. I've been reading legislation just recently. Thank you. And thank you, Noodle Chin. So that's one I really enjoyed making, just because it really is a pretty ring. It took quite a bit of time to make though, but so that's one. I just wanted to show that one off. You've just seen this one, which is called Candy Cane, and this is kind of in Christmas sort of colours. And there's another version of Candy Cane here, which was done in pastel colours, so more sort of candy colours, I guess. Which is a nice sort of really pretty sort of chain. And I've got some more here. Well, this one I showed earlier on the stream. This is a chain which is called full Persian. Nothing to do with Persia as such, but a full Persian is what it's called. So it's kind of like two chevrons going in opposite directions. You did not expect something like that. What, like the hello Theme Hospital? The Swarovski crystal one, I guess. Yeah. When I can save up, I'm going to do some more of those because I like doing them. So that's a full Persian. Then there's half Persians. So there's at least two types of half Persian. This one's called a 4-in-1, which is quite a close weave. This is two colours. Again, it's got this purple in it that you can't see. If you imagine, I don't know if you've, well, these two are inspired by Wimbledon. This one and the next one. So if you've seen the Wimbledon colours, which are purple and green, it's a similar sort of purple, but more shiny. So both this and the next one are inspired by Wimbledon tennis. I think off the top of my head, this one's called Tennis Anyone, because I like to name these. And this one, which is also a half Persian, which is but is a looser weave called a 3-in-1, and it's kind of a V shape. So it can almost sit two ways up when you've got it on your wrist, depending on how loose it is. And this one is called Wimbledon Wishes. So we've got two half Persians, and I've got a nice one here, which is a weave. No, well, Mr. Boombatty tends to specialise on the armour stuff these days rather than well, yes, I suppose he does do the other stuff in commission work, doesn't he? Don't know. If I could get as good as he does, I won't be disappointed. We're opposite sides of the big pond, so no competition there really. This is a weave called Helm. don't quite know why it's called hell, but it is. And it's more flexible. This one is more flexible in that direction than it is in that direction. So this particular set of rings only works as necklace because it won't bend enough to work as a bracelet. I know that looks like it's bending quite a bit, but when you try and put that around your wrist, it tends to just want to sort of twist in a funny way. You have to use a different set of rings, or different sizes of rings, if you want to do this as a bracelet, but this works quite nicely as a necklace. Put that down on the desk. So I'm showing off. I'm about to say I don't get a chance very often, but showing you guys some different things. This is called a Byzantine weave. Again, I don't think it's got anything to do with Byzantine, old times, but it's quite a nice sort of pretty pattern. And this is used a heck of a lot in jewellery, and curb chains are a Byzantine weave, but tends to be squashed and shaved. So it's a similar sort of idea. Yep, I'll catch you shortly, 3D. That's 3D going off to start his stream. You might not have gathered, but 3D is an airbrush artist who does streams, so I recommend you check him out as soon as I finish, which won't be too long now. That's a Byzantine weave, and again different colours, and just as an example of different colours than the one I showed you earlier on stream, this same thing, Byzantine, that one has a in this particular case it has a rolled gold clasp on it. I was about to say I only use precious metal clasps. They're not. Rolled gold uses a precious metal. It isn't precious metal, so it's I can't remember what the core is, but it's got a thick coating of gold on it. In this particular case, certainly less than a gram of gold, but there's quite a lot of that's quite a lot, relatively speaking, on the clasp. This one is stretchy, so you just put your hand in, it stretches over your wrist, and it'll stretch quite a long way, relatively speaking. I certainly get that over my hand, and my hand looks quite chunky, as you can see. Another version of chain, and this one is called a box chain because it's sort of boxy shaped, really. It's rectangular. I actually can't. One of these days I'll work out how to do this so it comes out square, but this is rectangular, so it's obviously wider there than there. And this was done. Well, the colours aren't exactly random, but they are randomish. So this is actually a necklace. It's a long necklace, and they're lovely and tactile to play with. Are these things with an extension chain on it, and then what they call a T-bar or a toggle fastening. I'm getting a desk full of these things. And just to illustrate it, here's a stretchy version of the same thing, but this is done as a bracelet, and again it stretches, so it goes over your wrist quite well, does that one. I actually do really enjoy working with these things, Noodle Chen. I'm having great fun, and essentially I have not done two of the same. I mean, you've seen like two candy cane that I've done these past couple of days, but they're in different ring sizes, so I was trying out different rings, and I often do that. So you saw the helm a minute ago, the blue one that's sort of just off frame here. This is a little test length I did using the blue one. Was all the same ring sizes. Here I've got two different ring sizes, again just to see what it came out looking like. And then I've got a third version of it using smaller rings. Now this one is the ring sizes here are such that it is suitable to go as a bracelet because it does bend enough. So it's just playing about with things. And then I mean, sometimes though you can go really simple. Here's a pink one. This is just called a 4-in-2, a simple chain. This one is made into an anklet. It's long enough to go around an ankle, and then you can take that simple concept even further. get what might be the traditional 2-in-1 chain. So it's just a very simple chain, but in this case it's in a gold colour, with an actual rolled gold clasp on the end of it, and this is just a bracelet again, a really simple bracelet. So you can get in, and you know, I don't know if you've seen the ring colours, but there's 15 or 16 ring colours to choose from, so even a simple chain can. And not only that, I mean, every link could, I won't say every link can be a different colour, because it can't, but they've only got 15 to choose from. But you know, you could do chains and put, you know, red, blue, orange, green, purple, red, blue, and so on a chain like that, and make something completely unique. They're examples of stuff you've already seen, and then we get some that you haven't already seen. Here's a small test weave. I've yet to make one of these up into a full bracelet. This looks very much like the Byzantine you saw, is now off frame. Do that. That's the Byzantine. This one, as you can see, looks very similar but bigger. The Byzantine is kind of square. It's got 4 sides. This one has got 6 sides. It's a 6-sided version of that. It's called a Turkish round. Why it's called Turkish round, I don't know. You know, Byzantine, Turkey maybe, and it feels more round. That feels sort of squarish. This feels more round when you run your fingers around it. Maybe that's why, I don't know. You know, people think of names for all sorts of reasons. So that's a Turkish round, and the box one, this one, or indeed this one, which is the stretchy box, that has a round Turkish sort of roundish one. It's called round mail. Now I've only got the small version of this, but again, you see that the same close weave. But this again is 6-sided, so it's really sort of feels round, hence the name, I guess, Turkish round. So that was just, and as you can see, the little tiny rings. So you know, these are bigger rings, these are tiny rings. You know, you're producing a completely different looking bracelet or necklace or chain, shall we say, just by changing the size of rings. Let's see if I can illustrate that a little bit better. Yep, here's the one. So this is a version of that. Let me just pick it out. These are both exactly the same weave and in exactly the same colours. They're both full Persian weaves. This one actually is, well, this one is with this ring size is only suitable for necklaces. It doesn't bend enough for a bracelet. So you know, sometimes rings won't work for something like a bracelet, but they'll work for a necklace because the radius of bend is a lot more. This of course works really nice for anything just because it bends that much. So I love experimenting. You see, no two are the same, and I've got more bits down here. Here's a small half Persian. Again, I just using slightly different sizes, so I can't get hold of the one I'm trying to get hold of. So again, both half Persian, both the same ring, same weave, 3-in-1, but again they look kind of different just because they're different sizes. Well, the smaller ones do look nice, you know, they are more dainty, and I guess potentially do appeal to women. But there again, you know, some women like really bold pieces. They might not like this great big candy cane, but would prefer the smaller version of it. But you know, something like the helm with really big rings sometimes stand out, and there's no way that's small or unassuming. You know, the crystal one. So, but it's sparkly. and that sparkly appeals to me, to be honest, never mind anybody else. And I mean, I tried doing a half Persian in really tiny rings, and this one doesn't work at all. Well, it works as a half. It is a half Persian. It's weavable. This is half Persian 4-in-1, which is that. But the rings are basically too small, really too small to do it, and it's not the actual size of the rings. It's a magic number associated with them. But essentially that's stiff. That doesn't bend at all. It won't work as a necklace. Won't work as a bracelet. It might work as earrings because it stands, and it might work as to do with pendants. But the thing about it being this tight as it actually is whereas this lies flat in like a rectangular shape, this is actually virtually a cross. So it's egg shaped basically. But I tried a small ring. I learnt it didn't work in that small ring, but it has a use potentially for something. And occasionally you get a Bob Ross moment, for those who are familiar with painting. At one point I was trying to do this, and starting Persian weaves is challenging. And I didn't start it right, and I didn't continue it right, and I ended up with this test chain, which, if I can just twist it correctly, is like that, I think, roughly. And it's not quite right, but I ended up with what they call a triple spiral by doing it wrong. And to be honest, that's how new weaves get built or born. If somebody will try something, particularly a complex weave, and a lot of these like this are already discovered, shall we say, but they'll do something and it'll turn out to look good and be something completely different by making an accident, and that's kind of what I did there. I had an accident in doing it. I did it wrong, and I ended up with a triple spiral. Unfortunately, this kind of doesn't work as a bracelet or a necklace really, because they tend to unwind. It's not bad as potentially as earrings, because they dangle and will naturally twist. But when you wear this as something like a bracelet or a necklace, it tends to tends to unwind itself, and it sort of looks really sort of not quite sure what it's meant to be type of thing. But anyway, so that's just some examples. Little tiny, another one, that's another version of that in a smaller chain again. A big chunky one, little tiny dainty one. The only problem with the dainty ones is if you want a necklace with something like that, it takes about 3 times as long to make as that. 1, 2, 3. Actually, there's the same number of rings in both of those, exactly the same number of rings, but as you can see, the littler one is only 2/3 the size of the big one. So the bigger rings are quicker to weave than the smaller ones, and occasionally you do things completely wrong. So I tried doing that in a different set of rings, and I ended up with this. This is actually the same thing. It's exactly the same weave, but the rings have the wrong magic number, and because of that, let me just try again. If I pull it, you can sort of see the pattern, but as soon as I take that tension off and just leave it, it sort of looks like a pile of rings. How long do I need for one piece? Depends on the weave, to be honest. Something like the Byzantine takes about an hour to make a bracelet. The half Persian and the 2 half Persians also take about an hour. It's just really fiddly to start. If you get a good start, it takes about an hour. if you don't get a good start on it, it takes about half an hour longer, about an hour and a half to do one of those. That's a little bit more complicated, about an hour and a half to do the full Persian. This candy cane took 2 hours to do that. Okay, I was on stream talking a little bit, about 2 hours. This one has taken about 2.5. Despite the fact it's bigger rings, those bigger rings and the characteristic of the rings meant I keep having to go back to tweak them. So that actually has taken about half an hour longer to do. That took about 4 hours. That takes about 40 minutes, as does the single chain. You might not realise, but a single chain takes almost as long as the double chain. And I can't remember how long that took as a necklace. Probably about 2.5 hours, I think. This took about an hour and a half, as did this, and it's the stretchy rings. You have to sort of fiddle about with them a little bit, which takes a bit more time than it does using straight metal rings. So yeah, you're in the order of an hour to 2 hours for a bracelet. A necklace is about twice to 3 times as long, so you're into sort of 4 hours or so for a necklace. My mic's too hot, is it? Okay, I can just tweak that down a bit. Audio. No, I won't sit. It's down at 3. I can take it down a bit. That's dropped the volume a bit, so that shouldn't clip now. Partly I'm sitting a bit closer to the mic as well, so. But anyway, so I'm done showing off now for this evening. Sorry, Eddie, you've just joined us. I'm about to finish, unless you've been lurking in the background. So my voice is going as well. Time for me to stop. So I'm going to say to everybody, thank you very much for watching. If you are watching and not following, I do, of course, encourage you to do so. Follow button is just below the stream window. If you'd like not to follow, but just to try and be notified when I go live next, then you are also, of course, welcome. Why wouldn't you be? To follow me on Twitter. It's @ZaraganArt. Details are also below the stream window, and they'll be on the end plate in a moment. On the other hand, if you'd just like to catch me on my next stream, it will be tomorrow night, 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours GMT. About 2 hours 10 minutes ago it was 8 o'clock, so that time tomorrow. I also now, as we're finishing, would encourage you to check out Eddie Fall Guy, who is doing some airbrush artistry. He should be live by now, and indeed what I'll do at the end of my stream is host him, so if you want to hang around a little bit, you'll actually see him on here, but I do encourage you to go directly to his channel and check him out. So in the meantime, thank you all, hope to see you again tomorrow, and bye bye for now.